Let's see here. Oh, that's really close. Okay. So, you wanted to see the charging port on a Galaxy S3. This one looks to be okay, though they sent it to me saying it wasn't working, so I'm going to swap it out. I'm going to try to cut the scenes in so that you get the fastest time, and I'll just screen screws in front of you. Alright, so the entire thing's taken apart. We're down just to the logic port itself. Nothing else is on it. All the tiny little components, you gotta be super careful that you don't knock them when they're in a liquid state. So, best way to prevent knocking them and or also protecting them is to use Kapton tape. Regrettably, I only have this 1/4 inch stuff, which means it's going to take forever to put on, but that's all I got. Lamont's going to give me hell about this, but I'm always say safe than sorry, so I always put lots and lots of layers right around the area that I'm going to be working on, both on the top and bottom side, just to help keep everything in place. I'm not going to have a chance to knock any of these in a liquid state anyway, but just to be careful, I'm going to put a little bit on most of it. Forgot to mention, oftentimes whenever you're doing a charging port replacement, it happens a lot actually, the microphone, the mic likes to just stop working. Maybe somebody else can answer out why. I think we just melt the insides of it, but it's straight up, it just doesn't want to work whenever you finish when you're finished doing a charging port and you make a call. Typically, I think it's just because you add too much heat to the joint, but just to be on the safe side, we always want to put a lot of Kapton tape and try to direct the heat flow away from the mic itself. Alright, I got it all wrapped up. Everything on the top side where I really have to worry about it. The microphone is seriously heavily wrapped up. On the bottom side, just lightly to make sure that I don't accidentally bump it. Just going to place it inside of our little holder right here. Now there are billions and billions of ways to solder. You know, it's just a very common thing. As far as rework on the micro USB port on the Galaxy S3, this just happens to be the way I like to do it. So, place it about center. Again, be wary of the charging of the mic. I'm going to turn on our soldering iron as well as our hot air gun. We're going to use the soldering iron in a minute. Turn up the hot air gun to about 400. I crank it up just a little past that. And you want to have it on a decent airflow. You gotta be super careful at this point because, you know, you're melting solder, you know, a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want to touch that with your flesh. That's just not a good idea. So we'll use tweezers. Give it a second. You know what solder looks like when it melts. You know what it's supposed to act and what it's supposed to do. So let it stay on there for a minute. And when you get to the point where you think that the solder is finally melted, right to the point where it's just soft enough, you should be able to tap the bottom of it. See, right now it's not moving anywhere. And give it a couple more seconds, and all that solder is literally just going to melt. This thing will come up super easy, just like that. So I'm always worried that I'm going to rip up the pads in the back. So just to keep it from getting into a plastic state and make sure that it actually melts, because lead-free solder's a bitch. I'm going to let it on there for a couple more seconds. I'm going to grab it, pick it straight up and off, and we're going to turn off the hot air gun because we don't need that anymore. Let it sit for a minute. Alright, so it's cooled down a little bit. So I always add a little bit extra flux because I like flux on everything that I work on. It always just makes the solder flow that much better. So add just a little bit of flux across your joints. And then what we're going to do is remove it. But before we remove it, again, silver or lead-free solder sucks. So we're going to add some solder first. There we go. Okay, once we added some solder, gonna add a little bit more flux. Now we're going to crank up your temperature a little bit to about 800 because you're adding far more mass that you have to actually warm up. And then we're going to just suck all the old solder out. You should be able to see when it melts. And you finally know that you're actually starting to suck something up. Yeah, see, I didn't add enough solder on the first run, so that hole isn't clean. Okay, so that hole's clean, that one's not. You want to clean out all the holes to make sure that when you put your new piece in there. Let's see here. I want to make sure you clean out all the holes. Make sure when you put your new piece in there that those little teeth right there will actually go through. I'll show you in a minute. Alright, so that one's not emptying out, so we have to add some more solder to it. There we go. And I'll just suck all that solder out. I'll go back to work on that one in a second. Cool. So all those are clean except for this last one. And just a little bit more flux to it, and we will add a bit more solder and suck it out. Come back to you in a sec. Alright, now that we've cleaned all the holes out and everything else is clean for the most part, what we're going to do, we're going to clean this entire thing. So if you look at it real close, you'll see right here that I actually tore up some of the pads when I actually took out the port itself. Right here. So you're going to have to be really careful that you don't end up doing that. And it's going to cause me some issues later when I'm actually soldering it all back together. Talk about cleaning. I found that this stuff works well. Drawers cleaner. And then just spray it off with a can of air. I'm sure Lamont's going to kill me for that, but that and some alcohol works great. Alright, so we cleaned it all up, and it looks so pretty now. Everything is already tinned, obviously, we just took off all the solder. But what is not tinned are the actual gold leads. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tin these so that it actually sticks and fits better. And now we're just going to do a test fit, so it should fit right there. Super, super easy. And all the pins should line up accordingly. Perfect. Like I said, these last two on the edge are going to cause me some issue, but we should be able to get back to those in a sec. Alright, so we tinned all of our leads, so we know that it's going to sit correctly. And actually want to pull the solder towards it. Like always, I like to add a little bit of solder to whatever I'm actually going to work on. Just found that it helps so much. And Lamont, if he watches this, is going to kick my ass for having too much flux. I don't care. I like it. I'll have to clean it off later. I don't care. Take our new guy, place him in place, and one by one, well, I'm going to do a drag solder, but we're going to actually solder all these back ones in place. Yeah. So we're going to have to go under the microscope eventually to actually see our handiwork. But for now, this will simply have to do. As long as you don't do stupid things. I hate it when that happens. Could really use that hoof tip right about now, Lamont. That's why I don't like needle points. Alright, so I think all those look pretty decent, at least from an aerial view. Those left three are always bridged together. Always, 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 always. And I'll have to spend some time on those alone to actually fix these. Alright, so if you can tell, those the two on the right are not soldered on there correctly. The middle ones look pretty damn good. And then, as always, the left ones, the left three, are bridged together. And one of them doesn't even look to be soldered. So every time you solder, I always like to clean it, throw it under here. I didn't clean it yet, but throw it under the microscope and test your handiwork. You can't see shit from a normal eye. It's just too damn small now. So what you always have to do is throw it under the microscope and then keep testing it. Alright, so clean it up a bit. I have to be super, super careful. So I always do the pins first so I know they line up correctly. So once the pins are mostly set, at least to a reworkable state, then I go off and solder down all the corners. You have to make sure you do the corners, because what happens if you accidentally bump it, well, there goes all of your leads. Not a good day. But I've found if you do the corners first, I always end up having to reposition it later, throw it under the hot air gun, too much heat, and I break things. Not a good idea to break things. Don't break things. We're here to fix things. So, let's see if I can reposition this. Iron, solder, just a simple through hole, that's all these are. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be doing the leads. And like always add too much solder, so I'll probably have to come back in here later and suck some of it out. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Got a phone call in the middle of that. So, I already soldered down all the corners. Alright, are we focused? I can't tell. Yeah, so solder down. Let's see here. So add more flux, because if you remember, there are those outer two tiny pins that were causing us issues. So we have to fix those a little bit. So add some more flux. And take our soldering iron. Come in here and just re-dab those corners. You see how my iron got stuck to the joint? It means it just don't have it turned up enough. As well as I also hate needle point soldering irons. Really hate these things. God, iron's still so hot though. A trick from a friend of mine. They said you can use the hot air gun as like a preheater to keep it warm as we work on it. Let's do that. Only we're not going to keep it at 400 some degrees. Let's take some of that out. No, bridge those two too. There we go. Good, 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 good. Nope. Bastards. Alright. That looks decent. I can't tell from up here, but we'll put it on the microscope and I think we're good though. So if you see right here, those three on the edge, those are finally good. All those look good until we get over here. A tiny O2 on the right side. Remember how I said that the pads got torn up? Well, they did, and it's definitely going to cause an issue here. So I'm going to attempt to rework those pins just a little bit, but we're going to have some issues with that one. It's still barely connected, but we'll see here in a sec. Alright, so we got it fixed. If not barely, but it's still fixed. That's all I care about. So they're all connected and looking pretty. Cleaned it all up, and they're all good. Always look over your work when you're done. It's still a little dirty. We got a lot to clean up on the board. Make sure you didn't like move any of the components. Make sure you're not missing any components. Double check your paper, your Kapton tape. Make sure you didn't peel off any components with it. It's happened to me once, and I was able to get it back together somehow. Oh man, that was a nightmare. Yeah, don't peel up components. Don't take that off when it's warm. Alright, because we just cleaned off the entire board, it's still a little wet. Basically, I just did a water damage on it. So we gotta let it sit there and dry for a little bit. Come back in an hour or two, and we'll take a look at it, see if it works or not. So far so good though, everything looks good.